Cleveland Browns, Pittsburgh Steelers, this time not in a snowstorm at Acrisure Stadium. Welcome to the Browns Steelers Breakdown. If you guys are new, you're here from my socials, from Honor the Land, or just here from YouTube, welcome. My name is Max. I make videos like this every single week for Thursday night, the biggest games on Sunday, and Monday Night Football to give you the best information possible for your fantasy teams and your higher or lower projections. Last week, this data helped us go 18-5 on our picks. So if you're new, make sure you subscribe. And if you enjoy content like this, or you've seen one of these videos before and you liked it, make sure you like this video below. Lets me know you enjoy this type of content. Without further ado, let's get into it. We'll talk about some data outliers. I'll show you guys how to make your picks on this stuff about halfway through, but I want to get through the big data outliers. And truthfully, guys, there's only one on each side, and I kind of hate it. I had to dive deep to get you some really good information on this game. But the two data outliers, and it's going to feed most of our picks for this game. The Cleveland Browns are allowing the 10th most yards to opposing wide receivers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are allowing the 11th most yards to opposing tight ends. A couple big injury notes here. Sounds like Alex Highsmith for the Pittsburgh Steelers will be back. That's going to help their defense a lot. To me, overall, that just pushes the Steelers winning the game. That helps that more than anything else. And then on the other side, right now, currently, the time of recording, so it's Thursday afternoon, Cedric Tillman is still in concussion protocol. We don't know if he's going to play. We'll talk a little bit about the Browns pass game. But Juan Thornhill was also a DNP on Wednesday, and we're still waiting for the injury report on Thursday, so we wait to see. But to me, that helps the Steelers' run game a little bit. We'll talk about some run game metrics. Let's get into the Cleveland Browns defense because it's very fascinating to hear what this team does. And I want to pull up the game logs from the last time these teams played. We'll look at the Steelers first because I don't think that this game, 2 weeks ago, really does justice to what these matchups present. Like, you can look at this run game, 11 carries for Jaylen Warren, 16 carries for Najee Harris. We'll talk about the run game in a little bit, but Calvin Austin with only 3 catches for 78 yards. Russ didn't throw the ball a ton. Pickens only 4 for 48. Van Jefferson had a big catch, but there was one constant thing in this game, even in the snow, and it's been very constant throughout the year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. When they throw the ball, they throw it deep, and Russell Wilson's very good at throwing the deep ball. Cleveland Browns defense runs the 6th most man-to-man in the entire NFL and the 2nd most middle field closed. So when you look at Russell Wilson and his production against middle field closed, we'll pull this up really quick. We have to go make sure we look at the games that Russ has played. Let's just make sure we do this right. So Russ has played since week 7. So we'll go back here, go through week 7 through 13. But you look at the production he's had, especially against middle field closed and man coverage. Wait for this to load, and it leans us a certain way in this game. So fantasy points per dropback against middle field closed, he has the 3rd most fantasy points per dropback at 0.52, which is pretty good. And then in terms of man zone splits, he is against man. Should be close to the middle here. Did we miss him? We didn't miss him, did we? 7, there you go, 7th most. So he's top 10, regardless, in both of those categories in terms of fantasy points per dropback against middle field closed and in man coverage overall. Now, the Cleveland Browns are being targeted on the outside at the 6th highest rate in the NFL. We talked about this last time. George Pickens, 34.5% of team dropbacks for the Pittsburgh Steelers have a George Pickens outside route. That is the highest on the team by far. The next highest is Van Jefferson at 25.9% with an out wide rate in terms of the drop back passes. Now, when you look at the Steelers against man-to-man coverage, it should be no surprise that George Pickens is the number 1 receiver, but it's really not close. And that's the thing. Like, he has 3.38 yards per route run against man coverage. It's a pretty ridiculous number. So when you go and look at these projections, and I'll show you guys how to get these picks and projections in a second here. You go and look at these projections in this game. George Pickens right now is only projected 69 receiving yards. And again, the one game he has not had it with Russell Wilson was against the Browns. But again, I think that's an outlier game. It was in the snow. It was much closer than we thought. I think the Steelers win this game pretty handily. But 69 receiving yards, it's just too low for me. That's what I like more than anything else. And truthfully, it could happen on 2 or 3 receptions. We saw he had 4 last game. The Browns are going to play man. They're going to match up one-on-one with him. Pickens, to me, still has to be the guy in this game, especially in the pass game. Now, if you guys do want to make your picks, I'll show you how to get this really quickly. There's a link below in the description for this. Sleeper, Underdog, and Better Picks are all giving you deposit bonuses or deposit matches. Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $1,500 right now. If you use code LEADS, LEADS, that's the only way you get this stuff. You get a free half-yard pick if you're not on the app already. Same with Underdog. They'll give you a deposit bonus up to $1,000, and Better Picks will give you a deposit match up to $200. So it's free cash on all these sites, free picks on all these sites. If you guys aren't on any of them, you absolutely have to get on it. You have to get on it. Additionally, if you guys want to see my picks all day Sunday for not just this game, but for all the games, make sure you follow me on X. There's a link below for that as well. Same handle, search it up, but click that link. It's super easy to follow. All that stuff is free on there too, so make sure you're following. If you're not already, you don't want to miss that stuff. But George Pickens, the outside guy, that is who I'm looking at more than anything else. Now, looking at the attempt data, Cleveland has the 5th fewest pass attempts allowed. That's why I lean yards before I lean receptions with Pickens. It's going to have to happen on a big play. And actually, last time this game, one of our picks, George Pickens, I believe his longest reception was 20 or 21. Regardless, we picked more, and he had a 27-yard reception, I believe, in the first quarter. So, to me, that's another way you can lean a long reception for George Pickens, but I think overall yards is still pretty good, especially because the Steelers are also bottom 10 in pass attempts. They're not going to throw the ball a ton, but when they do, it's going to go out wide. That's where they primarily throw the football as well. Like you can look at the offensive target rate. Pittsburgh Steelers top 10 in out wide target rate offensively. Browns top 10 in out wide target rate allowed. They play a lot of man. You saw what Courtland Sutton did to him last Monday night. I think George Pickens is in for a big game. Now, on the other side, the pass data. Pittsburgh Steelers. Talked about this last 2 weeks ago, Still the most middle field close in the entire NFL and the second most cover 3 in the entire NFL. Now, let's go talk about what Jameis does against these defenses. Make sure we do this right, too. Make sure we get the data from when Jameis is starting in terms of his fantasy points per drop back against this stuff. So Jameis started his first game in week 8. We'll go through that as well. Only got to change one here. But Jameis has generally been pretty good, just in general, in terms of fantasy points per drop back. But you look at middle field closed. Cleveland Browns, Jameis 0.49. That's the 11th most, or really tied for 7th most fantasy points per dropback. They run a lot of cover 3, and he's been seeing it a good amount too, which makes me feel confident that he can do it. He's seeing it in 46.9% of snaps. It's a decent amount, almost 50% of snaps in terms of middle field close is a good balance, even though it's comparatively not as much as other teams, but he can still produce against it, which is good. That's what we want to know. And when you look at the attempt data for the Cleveland Browns against the Pittsburgh Steelers in terms of the pass game, Steelers have the 12th most pass attempts allowed. Cleveland, with Jameis, the 4th most pass attempts overall. They're going to throw the football, especially against a good run defense. We'll talk about the run data in a minute here. But quarterbacks versus Pittsburgh. I'm going to read you the last few games here. This is pass attempts. 38, 27, that was Jameis in the snow. 33, 34, 38, 39, 40, 42. Those are the last games. Then they made the switch away from Russell Wilson for some odd reason. Time of possession, maybe. I'm not sure. 30, 20, 35, 26. Maybe it was the quarterbacks they played too, because there were 2 games where there were multiple quarterbacks that went in there. Regardless, Pittsburgh's going to allow a lot of pass attempts, which makes me feel confident about a lot of the Browns receivers. But where are they being targeted? Pittsburgh's being targeted at, it's pretty balanced everywhere, but highest comparatively in the inline tight end position. 11th highest in the entire NFL. Now, the Cleveland Browns, the entirety of the season, not even just with Jameis, 5th highest inline target rate. With Jameis, 4th highest inline target rate. That's obviously David Njoku, right? We know that. Most routes, most yards per out run from the tight end spot. But Steelers are also middle in the pack in terms of their slot target rate allowed, which is very important here because that's where the Browns have been throwing at the highest rate with Jameis Winston at quarterback. It's been a lot of Elijah Moore. We saw a big Elijah Moore game. Jerry Jeudy's running some routes from the slot. Now, if Tillman's out, Jeudy probably stays more on the outside, Moore and Njoku comes into the slot. David Njoku, 2nd most receptions and 2nd most yards per out run from the slot, only behind Elijah Moore in some aspects and Jerry Jeudy in some other aspects. David Njoku, the combo of where the Steelers are being targeted at the inline position, he is the inline tight end, obviously, and his production in the slot makes me really, really like the options that he provides in terms of overall catches, overall yards. Like you can go look at the projections right now. We'll pull it up really quick. You go look at the projections for David Njoku. And I know he did not have a great game against Pittsburgh last time, which is important to note, but he still was targeted 5 times. Jordan Akins had a pretty solid game. Remember, he dropped the touchdown as well. So a projection right now, he's projected 44 yards, 5 catches. Like you look at his games with Jameis, guys, 5 catches in all but 1. And it was when he had 5 targets still. 17 targets this past week against Denver. That's ridiculous. 9 catches, 1 catch against Pittsburgh. 9 catches, 5 catches, 5 catches. 10 catches, 5 catches. Like he's since coming back from his injury, not even just with Jameis at quarterback, has been playing really well, is being targeted a good amount. Actually, multiple double-digit target games without Deshaun Watson, which is also important to note. Regardless, I think the Browns are going to be trailing this game. They're going to have to throw the football. 5 catches is good. 44 yards is good, whichever one you like. Pittsburgh plays a little more zone, so I probably lean catches before I lean yards, but I like both of them. Now, let's talk run data here because it is very important. We got to look at this. The advanced rush metrics defensively. We'll start with the Cleveland Browns run defense. Now, I missed it. I messed up, didn't I? There we go. Okay. Cleveland Browns run defense. You look at this, right? Overall rush yards per game, they are 10th in the NFL. Not great. 130.6 rush yards per game in terms of overall rush attempts. Make sure we get this. 308, which is kind of middle of the pack, but teams are very efficient against them when they run. 10th most yards per carry. Now, offensively for the Pittsburgh Steelers on the other side, they have the 9th most rush yards per game, but the 5th fewest yards per carry. That's why I always want to lean attempts in these types of games, especially AFC North football, ground and pound. Najee Harris projected right now 15.5 rush attempts, and he had that against Cleveland. He's actually had that in 4 straight. Let's date back. He's had that in 6 straight games, and then in 9 of 12 overall. And the others he didn't. He had 13, 14, 14. So I really like Najee Harris in this game, to be honest with you guys. In terms of overall rush attempts, I like that 16 number. In terms of rush yards projections, it's 63 right now, and he's had that at a little bit less of a good or a little bit less of a rate than he had the carries in. But because the Browns are not great on the ground, at least recently, the Steelers are still going to lean into the run game. I trust that a lot. Another thing to note, Jaylen Warren, he also gets rush attempts. Like he's projected 35 rushing yards right now in terms of overall rush attempts. They don't have one on Sleeper right now, but definitely something to look at too because he had 11 carries last time they played. He's been pretty consistent in the pass game. Only thing is the Browns really aren't allowing a ton of receptions or receiving yards to opposing running backs. So Jaylen Warren, you're like, oh, scrimmage yards. I'd probably just lean rushing or rushing attempts. I'm not going to touch that, especially because of how much man the Browns play. I'm not really going to be there. On the other side, let's talk Steelers run defense real quick. So the Steelers run defense, you probably don't need me to tell you, is pretty good. You look at this, Pittsburgh Steelers, 4th fewest rush yards per game in terms of yards per carry, 5th fewest rush yards per carry, overall attempts, 3rd fewest overall attempts. Now, you look at the Cleveland Browns offense. Spoiler, they don't run the ball, and they don't run the ball very well. Nick Chubb had, 20 carries against these guys last time in a much closer game? 60 yards. 3 yards a carry. I know he scored twice. 3 yards a carry, though, guys. 3 yards a carry. It's not good. It's really not good. It's really not good. Cleveland has the 3rd fewest yards per carry and 3rd fewest yards per game offensively. They're not going to be able to run the football effectively. I lean away from that. I think you just lean back into Jameis' pass attempts. Before we conclude, though, we got to talk red zone and kicker data. It's important. It's usually what decides the outcomes of these games. Cleveland, 9th worst red zone defense, but on the other side, the Pittsburgh Steelers have the 4th worst red zone offense. Not a ton to give there. Both defenses allowing less than 2 field goal attempts per game, but the Steelers offense has the most field goal attempts per game. I looked into it. I was like, the Browns play bad third down defense or good third down defense. The Steelers have bad third down offense. They're both slightly above average in those respects. So, like, I think the Steelers are just, how do I put this nicely? I just don't think they're good in the red zone, to be honest with you. They're just that bad. Doesn't matter who the defense is. They just can't score in the red zone. On the other side, this is going to surprise you. The Steelers are middle of the pack in terms of red zone defense. You probably expect that. But the Browns are the 7th best red zone offense right now. 7th best red zone offense. They are not wasting time when it comes to scoring touchdowns in the red zone. They're able to put points on the board when they get there. But the question is, can they get there? Truthfully, I think this is Pittsburgh's game to lose. And I would be shocked if the Steelers lost twice to this Cleveland Browns team this year. I think this is Pittsburgh's game to lose. But in terms of the overall player projections, which again, if you guys want to make sure you get all the projections for the games on Sunday, you can follow me on X at Loeb's Leads. There's a link below. You can search it up, whatever you want to do. And remember, use that other link down there to get your free cash on these sites. But to me, it's David Njoku catches or yards. I probably lean catches before I lean yards. George Pickens, I honestly, the more I think about it, would go longest reception than overall yards, but I like both. Jameis pass attempts, Najee rush attempts. I think that's the best way to go with this game. I think the game flow is going to tell a story. You just need George Pickens to have one big catch, and it's good. That's how I feel. If you guys want to ride any of these picks, make sure you comment which ones you're riding. But I appreciate you guys hopping on and watching this breakdown again. Depending on when you're seeing this, Saturday around noon, 12 p.m. Eastern, there will be a full breakdown for all the Sunday games. Make sure you check that out. And There'll be a breakdown this Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern for the Monday night game, Bengals Cowboys. Make sure you check that out. God bless you guys. I will see you next time. Thank you for watching. Again, if you're new, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you join the family. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. God bless.